Staging is good times.
Not really. I'm not a
I should have staged one I did recently, but I didn't. Just too much time. Not enough time in the day.
no, no.
Yep. There's never enough time. You know, that's an illegal word. You're not supposed to say that. Didn't we talk about that? I'm
Yeah,
not
time block. You got to make best use of your time, and yes, it's yeah.
gotta make the time, right?
That's
And
right.
I just said there's not enough time in a day. It's such a bad word. So horrible. But anyway, so guys, we're going to talk about, we're going to jump in. I'm going to actually do some sound bites from a former FBI agent. Um, First off, I just want to tell you this. There's one thing that I've found in real estate. And for those of you that are not this, don't take it in a bad way. Just take it in a way that, you know what? I can learn those skills too. That's why I'm here today, right? That's why I'm here. But I'll tell you that I have found that the best real estate agents out there that I found, not the best real estate agent out there. Gosh, I'm gonna back up again. I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth. I've found that the best negotiators out there come from the past of being a law enforcement officer. So not the best real estate agents out there. Don't, I didn't, I said that, but I took it back. I promise. They're not the best. You're all the best. I'm just saying the negotiators come from someone that's done something with talking a lot and having to talk people down and talk people into this. Here's the coolest thing. I had this reputation. Okay, here we go. Here's how all the stories start. I had this
I
reputation.
got tons of stories.
Huh?
So I got tons of stories about you.
Yeah, I have a ton about you too. But we won't go there, Captain Morgan. Um, yeah. I had this reputation, when I was a police motor cop, of I kind of started getting liking this feeling though, that I would get people to tell me thank you when I gave them a ticket. How do you get somebody to say thank you? I I don't know how I did it. I was just somehow able to explain to them and that it's or kind of sell it. I guess I got good at selling the ticket. Um, I don't know. Somehow figured it out. And it was fun. I actually had a soccer mom once. I remember it was fun. I did say that. I'm sorry. That's horrible. I shouldn't call them soccer moms. But she did have a soccer ball in the back window. I remember that. She had a soccer ball on the back window of her Suburban. And I go and I give her ticket. And I think it was cell phone violation or it's no seatbelt or something like that, some simple thing. And I'm talking to her and I'm actually hearing something else in the radio. I had to apologize to her because someone was talking in the radio in my headset, and I'm like, I apologize. You got my full attention. I'm talking to her. We kind of go through everything. And then I go to walk away. She goes, okay, well, thank you. Have a great day. And she goes, why the heck am I thanking you? You just gave me a ticket. So walking away, and it was so fun. Sorry. Yeah. See, that's how we roll. You can be that good. You could be so good that, people are, you got to think about how you can tactically, and you're going to hear me say the word tactically a few different times today, because we're going to talk about tactics and being tactical in your negotiations and what it looks like to be tactical in your negotiations. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Before we jump into this, I always like to ask, is there anyone in here that needs something in their business? You need content, you need something to help your business in any way. Feel free to speak up. You're running into some sort of situation, you just don't know how to get through it, and you need some help. Anything?
I will say, Sean, getting a stubborn seller to come down and price more than $100.
$100. I got an easy one for him. The MLS doesn't actually send out unless it's at least $1,000 to $2,000. Doesn't
I
put.
know.
I know, right? No, I mean, how do you talk? Anyone want to tackle that one? That's a good one. How do you tackle the negativity of not wanting to reduce it? How do you change it from being a negative conversation to a positive conversation? This will go right into what we're doing today to get somebody to reduce a price. Anyone want to tackle that one?
I was going to add, Sean, the other thing is because she's fixated in her head that she is the cheapest price condo in that building and in that area. That's why she won't budge no matter how much I tell her. But we haven't had a call in 2 weeks. No showing, no nothing.
Yeah. Hey, I got a condo as well in Boise, the same problem. Yeah, I think it's the condos are struggling a bit, but hey, maybe not. But I mean, for me, the biggest thing that I like to do is to just talk with them and find out their why they're stuck there. What is their why? Make them feel like they're controlling the situation, having the conversations in a way to where they're feeling like it's their idea. You know, just, I'd love to just chat with you about, if you walk into your property and you were to look at it and you were to walk into this one, what would you want to
I don't
see?
know if I'll
What
be
would
able
you
to
want to
get
see?
sound. I'm
How
trying.
would you want to see do that? Remember, you guys, to mute yourself. You're gonna be talking in the background. What's it gonna take to get you to want to write a lower offer? Or what would you want to see? Trying to make them come up with the idea, figure out how to get them to come up with the idea by asking questions. There's always got to be questions versus statements, getting them with question marks versus periods. And we'll go into some tactics today that may ring a bell and help you out even more, Jody, because there's going to be some good stuff here today in this. So, anyone else have anything with that? Anyone else have any ideas about price reductions? What have you done recently to get
What's the amount that she wants to
more than $100?
it, she doesn't want to go more than 100.
She doesn't want to reduce it more than 100.
Oh. Well, yeah, I think you hit it spot on.
And the
Is find out the why.
objection is she's already the lowest one in the neighborhood. She's already the lowest priced in the complex.
The hard part is it's convincing them, but I think you're right. You have to understand the why and their motivation. I think if it's hard to convince somebody who is sitting on a home for, free and clear, and they don't have a motivation to sell. So I think that's what you have to find out is what's the motivation as well, and
Money.
kind of reflect back to the time frame. Maybe that's a conversation. That's a conversation I have. I should say in my listing presentations. What's the motivation? What's the time frame? And what is the reason you're trying to sell it, right? So go back to that and say, well, we can't if we can't sell it, and it's hard for me to market a home. That's the market's is going to dictate the price of the home. Um, we have no choice but to at least lower, and come to an agreement. But I think the motivation is a big part of it too.
Yeah. I love that. Here's another thought. Get a meeting. I like to do these sometimes once a month, sometimes once a quarter, depending on how long my listing agreement is, where I'll sit down with them and I bring these statistical forms to show what the market's been doing in the last 30 days to 3 months. So there's some new numbers that have come out just in the last 3 months, 2 months, month to 2 months, the numbers have come out. And there's been some things that have not been the best conversation starters for sellers right now. And that's the conversation I would start with is there hasn't been the best conversations going on for sellers. There's actually been some thoughts that we may slightly shift, not slightly, but may shift fully into a buyer's market over the next upcoming months. Eek! Did I say that out loud? Yeah, there's been some information going on that this has been one of the lowest sales spring markets that we've seen almost ever, but definitely in the last 15, 20 years. The last one was in 2006, 2007, 2008. We saw a crazy shift into a buyer's market, didn't we? Why? Because there was something that happened. It's usually some sort of economic thing that causes us to shift into a different market like that. And there's been some economic stuff, whether political or not, but what's been going on in the market is going to highly affect the sellers right now. It's going to highly affect the real estate industry. It has been affecting the real estate industry. You've seen it. You've felt it. Some properties are just not moving and they should be moving. Some properties aren't getting showings and they should. I reduced a short sell. 2 short sales we have so many short sales coming on the market right now too. That's another key indicator. I can't believe I haven't had short sales. I did so many short sales. I could not Every month I was closing at least 2 short sales a month, but most of those, it was taking me anywhere from 6 months to a year. The longest short sale I did was 14 months. Well, we recently dumped the price of a couple short sales, and I had probably 150 people call me on one property in Nampa and another one I have in Grangeville, Idaho. 150 agents and some sellers themselves. So there's a price that everything has a value, and there's a price that it'll sell for. And so in a market where we're starting to see there's a potential for prices starting to go down, do you want to wait and continue to be downward if that does happen? And we don't know for sure, but we are seeing some indications of that happening, Mrs. Seller. Do you want to be there and follow it downwards? Or do you want to get down and watch all these other ones that are higher priced than you start to go down and sell even lower than you end up selling? In a market where it's a buyer's market, you want to sell it first because all the others are going to sell later. So in the flippers, we'll chase it downwards. A good flipper won't quit the business and stop flipping. What they'll do is they'll start marketing their or pricing the properties on the bottom side a little bit. And they're, instead of pricing them a little higher than a seller's market, they're marketing them lower than what they think it should sell for. Right now, we're seeing flippers marketing them even lower. I talked to one of my top investors yesterday, and she told me that they're actually selling a bunch of their rentals right now that are headaches, preparing to get money in their bank because they've been living, right lately with all the sales, they got all the money out there. Right now, they're selling things to get money in the bank to prepare. That is literally happening right now across the nation. That was not somebody sitting in Idaho. That was all over the place. That was another investor I know from somewhere else. That's a great conversation to have with your sellers that are being stubborn. I wouldn't go say that with a brand new seller. I would say that to a seller that's being stubborn. Now, all of you have access. You should, if you're in California or Idaho, because we coach with Brian Eisenhower. Highly suggest Brian Eisenhower's material. This is a module series I'm showing you in here called Industry Docs. It's right here on the very first page. Industry Updates 2025. You can, Brian gives permission to fully plagiarize these things if you want and put your logo on them. If you coach with ICC, which Colby Lampman does, and so does Jenny Madrid, you can take these industry docs and make them your own. These are already showing 2025 numbers on here. It's showing what's new home sales is right here last year. So new home sales is going up. What happens when inventory starts going up and there's less buyer demand? Holy mackerel, things start to change, right? So that could be happening. That'd be a great thing to sit down and talk to your sellers about. So these industry docs are available in here, and there's some updated ones as of Q3 2024, and then we have as of Q2. We don't have Q2 yet out for 2025. We have Q1 out for 2025. So those are in here and available if you guys want to get those. So I want to make sure everybody knows and has access to the ICC modules. Today, we're going to be covering some negotiation tactics and negotiating like a homicide investigator. There's 2 negotiation modules in here. One of them is right here called Negotiations. It's called Negotiations. It's a great module series. It's probably one of my very favorites in here. It talks about the 2 different styles of negotiations. This is just one of the things it talks about. The acronym method of negotiations and the meet in the middle method. Most agents don't know there's 2 different methods of negotiations. There's actually multiple methods, but these are 2 prominent ones. The acronym method uses a percentage base where, hey, if I know I want to end up at this certain percentage, I'm going to come in at this percentage lower of where I want to end up, knowing that they're going to counter me back over here. And my goal is to get this percentage of my list price. That's my goal, whether it's higher or lower. The meet in the middle is, hey, I'm going to come in at 50 because I'm hoping to get 25. And so I'm currently over here at 75. I'm going to go down 50%. So that way maybe they come up 25%. Now we met in the middle. Most agents do the meet in the middle, and they let me know they're doing the meet in the middle. They're just thinking they're professional negotiators. And they don't even know that there's actual rhyme or reason and there's actual skills in negotiating. So they'll teach you a lot about that in the negotiation skills module series. Now, the team onboarding module series is the one I'm working through right now that I've been working through every single Wednesday. We've gone through creating your SOI, getting uncomfortable, how to grow your SOI, build your database, developing referral skills, vendor, social media basics, social media, scarcity versus abundancy. We've gone through all of these: control, daily schedule, time blocking, how to be a professional, how to speak like a professional, act like a professional, and keep it between the lines. Now we're in module 31, 32, 33, and 34, the last 4 modules, which are all about negotiation with needs analysis, mirror and matching techniques, and negotiation blueprint. So we're going to jump into that today. But first, I'm going to play a little bit of this right now. This is a retired FBI agent. And what you're going to learn in here, what you're going to see is that a lot of the tactics that we're going to be talking about today are exactly what you do as a business owner. And if you can learn these very simple tactics, holy mackerel, just realize how much quicker you're going to be able to get there. You're always negotiating with your kids, whether or not they want to stay up late and watch a movie or not, right? You're negotiating with your wife or your husband on what restaurants to go to. You're negotiating with your buyers and sellers about commission, right? These days we negotiate with buyers about commission, but it's a little simpler than everybody was worried it was going to be. We're negotiating with the deal itself. And then we got to go back and negotiate again with the seller. So we're constantly negotiating and using these tactics, not getting angry, not jumping the gun, learning how to be quiet and listen, learning how when you're quiet and you listen, you actually hear this thing called uncomfortable silence where someone has to fill the gap. But if you're the one, if someone's doing it to you, you're going to be filling the gap and not even realize you're doing it. But if you're tactically choosing to be quiet and be silent, for instance, someone says, oh yeah, no, my cost is 3% commission. That's what I do. And this is my value. Let me show you my value proposition and why I'm worth 3%. And that seller comes back and says, oh, would you do it for 2%? And you were to say, oh, you screwed up already. Shh, quiet, don't talk. Be quiet, think. Feeling uncomfortable yet? It's only 2 seconds. Think what's going to happen when it's uncomfortable. Someone feels like they
I
need
don't
this.
want my video on because
Sierra, you're talking out loud. You think about what happens when you have uncomfortable silence. Someone feels like they need to speak up and fill it. I do. So guess what? That seller's going to turn around and go, okay, what about 2.5? And you didn't have to say anything. You just kept your mouth. You kept your mouth quiet and you learned that uncomfortable silence to get them to speak up. Now, criminal investigators do that. I used to sit there and I know I'm going to say a name, Wes, just plug your ears for a second. I used to sit with James Kelly and he was great with interviewing. This was an amazing, I mean, even Wes will tell you, he was a great interviewer. He did a good job. He would make me feel uncomfortable because I'm sitting there trying to listen and learn, and if someone would say something and he'd just go, act like he's doing something else and stuff. And all of a sudden the guy would start talking again. And then he would talk a little more. And then, James wouldn't even say many questions. And then the guy would start talking. I mean, if that's a technique, then shoot, he did a pretty good job at it because it got me to feel uncomfortable sitting in the room. The guy could do that. He was pretty good at it. All right, let me play the beginning part of this. Just want you to hear how this guy starts off and some of the techniques he throws out. It's good. Thumbs up if you can hear this.
What I find in negotiations in real life is the absolute failure on the part of so many people to not anticipate what you will be asked. I'm Joe Navarro, former FBI agent and body language expert. Asking for a raise, haggling in a market, deciding where to go for dinner, interviewing a suspect. All of these are a form of negotiation. Every successful negotiation follows a pattern. There's the assessment phase, the engagement phase, and the transactional phase. If any one of these fail, at worst you have a disaster. At best, this process takes forever.
The assessment phase, engagement phase, and transactional phase. I will say most agents jump the gun and try to go straight to transactional phase. Our team was talking about this a little before you guys all started jumping in. We had a couple of team leaders on there and we were chatting about the fact that most new agents start this business. And if you're a new agent on here, I want you to think about this and hear me out. Most new agents start the business. After about 3 months, it's like clockwork every dang time you start feeling uncomfortable because it hasn't happened yet. You thought this was going to go straight to transactional. It happens to us all. Don't feel bad. It's pretty common. It just, you're not abnormal, all right? But just know that there is a point in time that that will shift and take off, but there are some important things you need to do. You need to continue to gain your knowledge. Most importantly, you need to get crazy uncomfortable. There's an item I'm going to talk about in a minute about how it takes, how many no's? You've heard that before. How many no's until you get a yes? They say it takes 10 no's to get a yes. But if you get 2 or 3, you're starting to get sick and tired of getting no's, so you quit. You haven't gotten to the yes yet. But what's happening for every phone call you make that you get a no, get a no, get a no, get a no? What's happening? Every single time you're sharpening your communication skills. You're getting better at communicating. You've got to mess up a few times to start getting better and better and better. You got to get hung up several times. It's just got to happen. But what happens to number 10? All of a sudden you might get a nice person, and then next thing you know it, you're having a great conversation and it works out, and you think, well, I just happened to get a bunch of bad leads and one good lead. No, what probably happened was your first 9 calls were just crappy. You didn't know how to talk. You were failing and quitting too soon. Someone was saying, no, I'm good, and you, instead of learning how to say, oh, great, what'd you end up buying? I'd love to hear a little more about it. I mean, I've got a few other buyers. Is it a great neighborhood? Oh, excellent. You have a growing family? I bet that's a great neighborhood for family. Do they have play sets in the neighborhood for family? I got a couple kids with families with small kids, and you were ready to quit at no. But now I've got them talking a little bit, and I'm learning, I'm asking questions. Oh, yeah, how big's your family? Oh, how cool. And we're going back and forth about their family, Ford, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And I'm going through the Ford. That's all I'm doing. Next thing you know it, I'm getting a dang referral off of this where you quit. See, it's not that difficult. The problem is you're not getting yourself uncomfortable enough to learn how to keep asking questions. Just because they said no doesn't mean you're not going to get a yes. You will get a yes if you stop trying to rush to the transactional phase. The assessment phase is one of the most important parts. Most people fail in the most negotiations. They fail because they don't anticipate what you're going to be asked. They don't plan it out ahead of time on what's going to happen in these phone calls. So I'm going to get some no's. I'm going to get some people to tell me no. So how am I going to get them to start talking to me after the no to keep the communication going? Did you plan that out? Did you assess your pathway to get there? A good investigator, a good detective is planning it out ahead of time. He pulls out the yellow notepad. I hated the yellow notepads, but that's all the PD would pay for. The yellow notepads, we'd sit there and start planning out. Okay, what questions? How about investigation? Am I an investigator? Do I know anything about this seller I'm going to go meet? Have I got on social media and started researching who they are, what their likes are, what their dreams are? Do they like to go paddleboarding? Do they have dogs? Do they like to go to dog parks? Do they go to boating and stuff? What have I researched about the seller that I'm going to go meet with, or buyer? I just got a new buyer. I got a name. I got a phone number. There's a lot of very different places, things like that's them and stuff. Well, you got a phone number that's in Visalia, California, right? 559, typical 559 number. Okay. And they're calling on a Visalia house. They probably live in Visalia. So let me get on Facebook and search their name and see who pops up and learn a little bit about those people over there to see if I can gain a little bit of knowledge. Somebody speak up. Somebody have a question? No? Okay. So just understand, we can't go so quick to the transactional phase. There's a ton of preloaded things we need to do to prep before we get there. A ton of it. Okay, tactical planning. All right, I want you to think tactically. How do we tactically plan? If you have time to plan such, success, such as upcoming listing presentations, upcoming buyer presentations, get on Facebook, social media, get on Instagram, learn who they are, what they do, what they're like, stuff like that. Learn about their likes, get to know them. The main reason for walking a listing with a seller before you sit down at the table is to get to know who they are. When you first go in there, you're not walking the house to look at the house, guys. That's not why. If you are, someone didn't teach you in the beginning. Walking the house is to look for photos of things that are going to help you get that conversation going with a seller. You're walking the house to get to know them. You're looking at photos. I'm constantly looking at photos on the wall. Oh, you guys got a Aussie. We've got one too. They're such fun, loyal dogs, aren't they? Yeah. Oh, you're in the horses. Oh, dirt bike ride. And I see a lot of dirt bike. you see a site, you go in the garage, you look in the garage, what are you looking for? To see if it's a structured garage. I think last I checked, a garage is still a garage. Do you really go into the garage to look at the garage? No, you're going in the garage to see what's in there because people store their hobbies in the garage. They store their hobbies in there. And you're going to be able to connect with them through some of their hobbies, get to know them. That's how you create relationship-based businesses. So you're walking the house to get to know them, stuff like that. You want to learn more about them. You want to know who they are, whether they have dogs, cats, stuff like that. Hiking, do they like hiking? Do you like hiking? There's so much that you're going to learn about someone if you just spend a little bit of time with your pre-assessed research. It's a very important skill of investigations. Typically, they know everything about the case, where they come, where they live, what they do. The good criminal investigator is going to know everything about this person before they step into that interview room. Everything. As much as they can. And they're going to gain that knowledge. All right. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the script practice. Script practice, not just for real estate. Okay. It's not just fake. It's a real thing. Criminal investigators role play with other investigators. Believe it or not, they do role play.
Back immediately. So it's planning, it's coordinating, it's rehearsing, sitting down with fellow agents and saying, okay, you're going to play the part of the bad guy. And yet I've been to, observer of many a negotiation where there's this absolute failure to think about what will be asked. And this all goes to, winging it, thinking that negotiations is just about the transaction. Showing up and saying what maybe you've thought about, when in fact the front end should be what takes up the most time.
So good. That front end preparation is what takes the most time. It gets you where you need to be. It gets you what you want to do. You got to get through that front end part of it to get where you need to go. All right. So the next thing we're going to jump into is mirror matching. I'd love to hear something from you guys. What is your front end process to prep yourself for your listing presentations or meeting with a new buyer? You get a team lead. What do you do?
Well, Sean, for me, if I get a team lead, it's a little different when you're talking on the phone. But when I'm having a face-to-face meeting with someone, or I set the appointment, that's where for me, just like in when I was a homicide detective, I want to know like you talked about, everything about that person. I want to just get a feel for crooks. How long have they been a crook? What's their background? What's that? All those things. You want to really get into it as much as you can about that person. And if you look at photos, this is kinesiology, but you're looking. People show you their body language in photographs. You can tell the mood of someone a lot of times by their positioning and how they're sitting. And so I've always had that prep in the background. And then when I meet that person, I can tell right off the bat whether they're guarded, whether they're somebody that's approachable. And when I start to talk, I try to always start with open-ended questions, right? Trying to get them to free roll. And then as you're listening, the active listening part for me is the most critical, because they'll tell you what their intentions are generally right off the bat, unless they're that guarded type. And then there's a different way you start there, that you talk more about the hobbies, the interest, all that. That's just me personally.
No, that's so good. We're going to actually jump into the whole body language communication here in a second too, because there's things he's going to talk about this in this video about the hand clenches. He talks about the flat hands on the legs, body language. So
Bouncing knee.
Bouncing knee. Yep. You guys know those. I see those in an interview, and when I'm doing something, I key up on the bouncing knee all the time. I've keyed up on myself doing the bouncing knee. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Once you know it, you start to realize if you're doing it. You got to learn it, though. You got to learn the body language. This guy's a body language expert, this former FBI agent. He's an expert in it. He could read it, know it, understand it. I'm telling you, he's a body language expert. But you start to learn the things that you do. So if you're going to go in and you're going to be meeting with some CEO guy that's got a major, 10 times college degree, maybe he owns a hospital. He's not just a surgeon, but he actually owns several hospitals. And you're going to go in there and talk like a fifth grader. How far are you going to get with that guy? knowing the person you're talking to, knowing your audience. This is as simple as this. If you're listing a ranch, I have a couple different cars. I will choose which car I drive to a listing appointment. I will choose whether I'm going to wear cowboy boots or if I'm going to wear a nice dress pants and maybe even a suit. If I'm going to go meet with some major executive, I'm going to at least wear a nice collared shirt and maybe a tie and a jacket. I'm going to dress in a way that they understand that I'm not just, you're mirror and matching as well who you are. So you're mirror and matching, the people that you're dealing with, the people that you're working with. You go to a ranch, driving a high-end Mercedes car, they're going to probably be like, oh my gosh, here comes a salesman. You go to a rancher, talk to a rancher with cowboy boots and a Dodge truck, you have a better chance of getting them to talk to you, getting them to open up to you because you have something in common. That's one thing that I'll say police officers have an excellent thing of doing is mirror and matching. It's one of their major things. I've sat there and watched good cops start having slang in their voice, talking to gangbangers sitting on the curb. Little gangster slang in their voice. Do they do it on purpose or accident? Who knows? It might just be their natural ability because they've done it so many times. I see them talking, very, completely change their voice tone to someone else. That's mirror and matching. That is truly mirror and matching. You got to mirror and match the person you're talking to. We're going to talk about that right now too. If I'm sitting up on the table like this, and that person across from me is laying back in the chair, they're going to feel like I'm about ready to jump in their lap. If they're sitting back, you sit back. They stand forward, you sit forward. This is an excellent one right here on mirror and matching. Let me share my screen here. We'll listen to this real quick.
I was to recruit individuals who were working for hostile intelligence services. They would often be in the United States under different cover. As students, working with companies and so forth. But it's not like you can walk up to somebody and say, hey, hi, I'm Joe, and we know you're spying, and please tell us everything. So it was a matter of letting them know that I was an agent of the FBI, and how can we begin to at least talk to each other? And what I found useful always was I would find them on the street and I would just begin to walk with them. And if they carried the newspaper in the left hand, I carried the newspaper in the left hand. By mirroring their behavior, they don't feel threatened, but then next time when they see me again walking next to them, they're saying, wait a minute, there are no coincidences in counterintelligence work. And then I can begin a process of engagement that is benign. So one of the things that I found as an FBI agent in just trying to get people to either confess or cooperate with us was what came to be known as the empathic model of social interaction. And the empathic model basically looks at human communications and says, in every effective negotiation, you have the assessment phase, the engagement phase, and then the transactional phase. We look at assessment as all the information that we can gather ahead of time, plus what we can read from this person the minute we come into visual contact and then throughout the process. And so subconsciously, by approaching this individual and just mirroring their behaviors, they're thinking, this is a pro. This guy knows how to do it. This guy knows that I may be under surveillance, but this looks natural. Man,
I love that, the natural phase, because I work with a lot of new agents, and I've actually gone with them to their listing presentations sometimes and with buyers. I don't take this wrong, all right? But some of the newer agents haven't learned quite yet to talk to people. So if you're a newer agent on here, I want you to think that through, all right? When we bring on someone on our team, we look for an ideal team player. It's an excellent book, Ideal Team Player. Are they hungry to learn? Are they hungry? Will they listen? Are they humble? Meaning they're open-minded, they're gonna learn, they're just gonna here to listen. I know that I don't know everything. I know what I don't know. I haven't learned it yet. Okay, so I want to listen and learn. I understand my paycheck's going to be quite lower in the beginning, and I'll take it. I think I told you guys when I went to work with the Kevin Blaine team, he offered me 40% of everything I closed, whether it was SOI or not, and I said, I'll take it. I'll learn from the best. Teach me everything, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he did. Taught me so much. Holy mackerel, I carry it with me for my entire career now, almost 20 years. And so, like, literally, that is huge, to be humble and listen. And are they number three? Not the least important, though. One of the most important. Are they people smart? Do they know how to talk to people? Do they know how to talk to people? If you don't, here is a simple tactic for you to remember. Very simple. Mirror them and match them. Very simple. What they're doing, you do. If they're sitting back in their chair, sit back in their chair. If they're talking about family, listen to what they're talking about and talk to them about family. Hear them out. Hear what they're going through in their life. And just stop trying to close the transaction. Talk to them. Learn about them. Get to know them. The close comes later. There's 3 phases. Assessment phase. You're assessing them. You're marrying them. You're getting to know them. You're watching their body language. You're learning about them, getting to know who they are. Number 2, engagement phase, where the best practice makes them feel uncomfortable. The best way you can make them feel uncomfortable is if you look professional. You've got to look professional. You got to act professional. You got to be professional. That's important, okay? It says the measured attempt is to establish meaningful line of communication with the opposing party using all information obtained in the assessment phase. So whatever you learned when you first walked in that house, whatever you learned when you first talked to them on the phone, whatever you learned by your social media searches and stuff like that, you're going to use that in the engagement phase to be able to now have that meaningful conversation about who they are, what their dreams are, what their goals are, what they're looking to do, and go from there. Transactional phase is to find out goals and objectives and who they are. That's what the transactional phase. Now I'm transacting with them and I'm going back and forth about that. You want to learn a ton about that, okay? I'm going to jump over to time of day, because the time of day makes a big difference. If you go to somebody and they are just got off work and they're sick and tired and they don't really want to hear you out, you might have picked the wrong time of the day to go meet with them. If they're working inside some sort of stop that for a second. I'm gonna let that play until that finishes. If they're working inside of some sort of industry that they're just struggling and they hate their job and they hate their life, and then they come home and they got to deal with this flipping sales agent that the spouse brought home or something like that, holy mackerel, that's not fun times. Not the best place.
One of the things that I always looked at is a term we coined called chronicity, and that is how we use time. We know that, for instance, for doctors, surgical accidents increase after the lunch hour. Parole boards are more willing to be lenient in the morning hours, less so in the afternoon. So a lot of that has to do with both the circadian rhythm and blood sugars. And so as I look at negotiations in law enforcement, I need to factor, when is this person the most able to resist me versus, okay, at this point, there's going to be less resistance. Negotiations are temporal. Whoever dominates time is in charge.
If you know somebody has been working their butt off all day long, and they say, oh yeah, no, I'll be home at 5:30. Okay, is it okay if I come by at 5:30? Was that convenient for you to choose 5:30 or them? Let them come home from work. Let them get a little bit relaxed. Let them have a beer, get calmed down, and then go sit with them and start talking. Go look at the house. Let them enjoy their family for a second. Don't just hit them right when they come home. You control that clock. That's part of your negotiations and getting some of your things that you need to get done. You got to get it there. All right, I'm going to jump ahead to another one here. Any questions on that? Okay, I'm going to jump over here to 640.
Negotiating for a building with a father and a daughter. And they made an offer that was supposed to be like their final offer. And I just sat there and lowered my eyes, and it drove them crazy. And finally, the daughter said, okay, we're going to throw in another $1 million. And he wasn't expecting that. He was just expecting them to say, this is it.
We're talking a little bit about that silence phase and keeping it quiet and learning to have uncomfortable uncomfortable silences. There's different factors as well. If you're running into a situation where maybe the conversation isn't going the way you want it to go, there's little things. Now, I don't ever suggest touching people, okay? But that is one tactic. Just a little tap on the hand for a second catches their attention. I've seen people knock over water bottles on accident or drop a pin. I have done that one. Drop a pin on the ground. It kind of breaks it up for a second. So think about this. If your conversations are going a certain way and you're never being quiet, and maybe this seller that you've talked to or this meeting you have actually has a daughter who's a realtor, and you sat there and got into these back and forth conversations, chat for an hour. And then they say, oh yeah, no, we are going to list it. I was just thinking maybe you might have a buyer because my daughter's going to list my house. How much time did you waste? You never actually followed your process. You just got in a big old huge conversation and Chatty Cathy happened. And I'm sorry, it could be Chatty George happened. And you just chatted, and you never actually got to that point to where you actually followed your processes. So we actually have to follow our process. And sometimes it's breaking up the conversation and bringing it back over to, you know, your system, like bringing it back versus just continuing and let it go. Oh man, you got to be able to stop it every so often and get us back on track. Now, getting into an argument, I'm telling you, I had a situation the other day where someone told me that they called, they started saying what was wrong. Let's just use, for instance, a seller or a buyer calls. You get some bad news that you have a low appraisal, right? You got to call and give them that information. So you give them the information, and all of a sudden you've got an irate seller or buyer. What? Oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. And then blah. And if you as an agent don't know how to control your words, don't know how to control your thoughts or your emotions, then you're going to turn around and say, well, it wasn't my fault. You're not prepared, right? And you're trying to backtrack. No, okay, well, yeah, no, and you're not thinking. In situations where people start getting fired up and crazy, you got to learn to do this phase, and it's a form of parroting. Okay, that's part of it too. But you got to let them vent. You got to let them vent. You got to let them get it out. Once they get it out, you parrot back so they know you heard them. If you parrot back and say, oh my gosh, yeah, I've got this idea. We could do this right now. You know, let's just do this. And you lost them. You're not hearing them. So if they say frustrated and mad because they got a low appraisal, you say, yeah, you know, it's frustrating. I can't stand, this happens from time to time, and it's a horrible thing. There's nothing we can do to get them to bring that up. The appraisers, you know, they kind of have the mind of their own. They do their thing or whatever it is you want to say that about that. You know, they chose to come up. The comps they use weren't my favorite comps. Whatever it is you got to do, I hear you. You want to say you hear them. You know what they're going through right now. But I have a couple of ideas. Are you okay if I throw a couple quick ideas out? So now they got it out. They're no longer angry and upset. They vetted. They've done their venting, and now you can bring the ideas in. They're gonna be like, all right, what do you got? And now you're down. If you try to get loud at the same time they do, then they're gonna get louder. And we don't want that back and forth. You gotta let them vent and get it out. That's a negotiation tactic.
One of the things that I learned as an agent, especially dealing with extremists, is that you just let them vent. And not just let them vent once, but let them vent over and over and over and over. And just when you think they're shutting down, you say, well, tell me about that again, or would you cover that again? And what happens is second law of thermodynamics, entropy. After a while, they've grown so tired. They've got so much negative emotions poured into this that eventually they wear out. and it leaves you in a better position to then negotiate.
Brian Eisenhower calls this letting the marlin run. You may have heard him say that in some of your videos if you've been doing a great job and going through the ICC modules. He calls it let the marlin run. You got to let it go. You got to let them go. You got to let it go. And then they're going to tire out. And then that's when you're able to come in there and negotiate the hard stuff. You're able to come in there and bring them back around, bring them back into it. You got to learn to talk to these people. You got to learn to let them run a little bit. Let it happen. Let them get in there. Let them get frustrated. They're going to get frustrated, but that's okay. You really got to let them do that. All right, we're going to jump into a little body language. Just like Wes Hensley said, I love the body language side of this one because it really does. It's a real thing. You're going to see so many cool things go on now that you've been thinking about this out loud. You're going to see some cool things.
One of the most difficult cases that I ever had involved a man. He was in his late 30s, and he was a pedophile. We knew there were at least 2 photographs of what he had done, but we knew that these individuals collected a lot more. And the question was, number 1, where was it? Number 2, would he cooperate with us? And number 3, would he confess to all these crimes? And the difficulty was, when we assessed this individual, he seemed like a nice guy in the sense that if you ran into him on the street, you wouldn't perceive him as being a pedophile. But at the same time, I was assessing myself, and that was how angry I was that I was sitting with this individual. So I had my emotions to deal with, but I have to negotiate.
If you love to travel, Capital.
You love commercials. He continues. So I'm going to finish that because we got to jump into this other side of it real quick. But he continues to talk about how, he's got to put his anger aside. Think about those situations, guys. We have pretty simple situations as realtors. We think we got it hard. Try to be one of those investigators that's an investigator, a sex crime investigator. Holy mackerel. It's a very difficult job. You're constantly angry and upset at the person you're looking across the table at. You want to choke them out right there, put them out of their misery. Now, that happens quite often, but you've got to build rapport. If you expect that you're going to get somebody, and some people, like I think Wes said this earlier, we use the DISC a lot, D-I-S-C. You got your driver, you got your intellectual person, you got your stable, structured person, you got your I like to call him like the accountant, very analytical person when it comes to your C personalities. You're very they love numbers person. Sometimes they're a little closed off. It's hard to get them to talk. So building rapport, understanding who they are, what they've gone through in their life, the difficulties this could be causing. He talks about in this video about the family. This is going to be hard. You're going to lose. He talks about losing his job. He talks about losing his family, losing his life, and he has to build rapport with them. I understand this is going to be extremely difficult for you. Yes, you could potentially lose your job and lose your life and all this stuff. And I want you to know I hear you. And he gets that rapport going with them to the point to where eventually the guy's tells him everything, tells him where the photos were hidden, where he's got all the extra photos hidden that he's taken of people, different stuff like that. Wow. Talk about negotiations, right? What do you think, Wes?
100%. Yeah, I mean, the channeling your own emotions in these things, and just like I was talking about the body language, they're looking at you and reading you too. If you're too anxious about this deal, or if you make it look like, man, I need to get this deal, all those things play into it. And it's absolutely right. For me, like I said, always been the body language thing has been more of a tell than anything else. The other thing for me is eye contact. I know when I'm hitting a nerve or a pain point for somebody, just by the way that they look at me.
Yeah.
Right. And if they will hold my gaze, they're confident. If they're looking away, they're either nervous or that's a pain point, those kinds of things. And you adjust your tactics based on what you're seeing at that moment.
Mm.
So adaptability is the other thing that's really key in this. If one tactic doesn't work, you shift gears into another one.
Yeah, these people are going through some of the the most difficult, some of them are the most difficult time of their life. You're dealing with divorce situations, you're dealing with deaths in the family, and they got to sell grandma's house. Divorce situations have been one of the toughest deals I've ever done. And to this day, I've got to be a counselor for both sides. And I always tell them that. I'm straightforward with them. I'm not a counselor, but I'm going to end up being kind of like a counselor working with both of you. I promise you there'll never be anything. I'm going to sit there and get between you guys. I'm going to be here as a helper for both of you. You're going to have me on your side, and I'll be going back and forth between you both. I'll always communicate between you both. I'll never not communicate with you. You know, what's going on, you'll both know what's going on. That's the way we have to do this. And they appreciate that. It's a difficult time in their life. This is emotional roller coaster for them. Our job as professionals is to tactically lower that stress. It's not always easy. And a lot of times you're working with them through some difficult stuff, but the conversations have to be there. You got to be able to get them to know that you are the professional and you're in control. You've got this covered. You're going to protect them. All right. Any questions on all this? I know this was a lot. So there's so much we can get into on labeling and mirror matching and paraphrasing. You know, paraphrasing is how we repeat back to them the communication tactics of, you know, we mirror and match them. We hear what they're saying. We understand what they're saying. We're labeling that situation they're going through because it's huge emotional things that are going on in their life. So we want to emotional and validate their feelings right there, their emotions and their feelings. We want to validate it. And then let them calm down and move on because they feel understood now. Communication, understanding them is so, so important. What else? Anyone else have any takeaways? You want to tell me this was good or not good? What do you think? So
It's excellent.
I want you guys to know you're now super agents. You're not just a real estate agent. You're a super agent. All right. Agent Super Teddy.
Sean, hey, I really like the part about mirroring our clients. You know, if they're sitting up and hugging the table, put your chest on the table too. You know, if they're sitting back and relaxed and having a good time, you know, kick back a little bit. I just had an opportunity to work with a couple from Tanzania, and they had a very heavy accent.
Oh.
By the end of the conversation, I found myself trying to mimic the way they talk a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, not to poke fun of them, but to make sure that we understand each other.
It happens that when you're really truly doing it right, that will happen naturally. All of a sudden, you find yourself almost having a little slang in your voice. It happens. It's a natural thing. Yep. That's when you know you're doing it. To me, that's when I know I'm doing a pretty good job if I'm that into this conversation with them as much. They're into this conversation with me just as much as I am with them.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? All right, guys. I hope this is good. If you want this content, email me at Sean@Cardoza, RE, short for real estate, group.com. Sean@CardozaREgroup.com, and I can share with you any of this content that I have. Just know that all the stuff is in the ICC modules. Highly suggest ICC coaching. Brian Eisenhower. It's amazing. You will definitely love the content. There is no smarter guy in the business out there than Brian Eisenhower. He's created some amazing content. I highly suggest it. Grab it. You have it at your fingertips. If you don't have access, you can email me there and I'll make sure you have your access because you should have it. If you're not with any of those two brokerages, we want to get you that access and I'll tell you exactly what you can do to get it and help you get the access. Have a good week, guys.
It was
Get
great.
out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go negotiate.
John, I was
some
just going to
deals.
offer up to the California agents, if you ever want to practice any of this stuff, I'm always around. I got lots of experience at it, and we can talk about some of the things that I've used and been successful at dealing with folks. So be happy to just or bounce ideas off, and I always learn something when I do that. So it's it's a great way to get comfortable with doing the uncomfortable. It's practicing it.
One part that you didn't hear that this investigator talked about that I fast forwarded through is the importance of practicing and doing script practice. He didn't call it script practice. If you think that's just something that agents do and that you don't want to do it because it's boring, I've done it with my wife. I've done it with my daughter. I've done it with other agents. I've done it with myself in the mirror. Okay, make fun of me. I don't care. I'm pretty good at what I do though. So I'm telling you, script practice is huge. Law enforcement officers will grab another law enforcement officer and they'll practice before they go in and interview this guy. Okay, you know, give me the hard questions. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you some hard, you know, let's go back and forth. Take Wes up on this. He's good at it. He closed 10 in his first year in the business in one of the most difficult markets we've had in a while. Consistently learning, and I will tell you that he will tell you, I have no doubt about it, that it has to do with the fact he knows how to talk to people. He's not afraid to talk to people. He's not afraid to get out there and make conversations. He's not afraid to door knock. He's not afraid to get out there and get to know people. You got to do it. And he'll take him up on that, guys. Take him up for sure. All right, guys. Have a great week. Reach out if you need anything. You know I'm here. Talk to you soon.
You guys.
Thank you.